Because the politics aside, what does it actually mean for you and I? Just to give you figures on that. Already there's about 50% reservation when it comes down to the caste calculations. When you move beyond that and we include the EWS quota, which adds another 10%, 59.5% POs, and that's a whopping amount. 59.5% is now reserved. What is left is 40.5% for the general category. I want to cut across and get a larger understanding of it from my colleague Nalini, who's been tracking the courts very keenly. Nalini, will you break it down for us? Who can actually apply? What are, the permutations, combinations that would work? And how will it actually, if say both of us are EWS and we apply, then what happens?
Well, Preeti, first thing that we need to highlight over here, it's that very interesting, is that out of 5 judges, right, there are 4 separate opinions that have been drafted in this judgment. So even judges who have ruled in favor of granting the EWS reservations have done it for different reasons, because there are 3 separate opinions by them. But at the same time, talking about the criteria, now the simple defined criteria for somebody to be eligible under the economically weaker sections category is that, one, their family income has to be less than 8 lakh rupees. Now, what does family include in this? Family includes their parents, if they have any spouse, and any siblings or children under the age of 18. Along with this, they have to ensure that they don't have an agricultural land over 5 acres, along with a house that is not over 1,000 square feet. So this is the basic criteria that has been laid down for who can be eligible to even apply for this reservation. But at the same time, this is only for eligibility for application of the reservation. As to whether or not they will be granted the quota is a decision that is ultimately going to be left up to the institution or the government in this case, as the case may be. Along with that, a very interesting aspect regarding this entire matter is that this is not applicable to the people who already have the reservations. The 50% category that you were talking about, SCs, STs, OBCs who already enjoy reservation under different categories, this will not be applicable to them. This is only for the general categories that they can apply for this EWS reservation. So it remains to be seen exactly how it's going to be implemented, because remember, because of these legal hurdles, the 103rd Amendment has not been able to bring into force yet. But now, with the Supreme Court giving its go-ahead, the implementation is finally going to happen, which means people can finally go ahead and apply for this reservation and hope to get a government job or an educational institution seat according to whichever state they are available in.
Nalini, when we talk about educational institutions and government jobs, yes, one understands because one has seen the reservation quotas in there. But when we're talking about educational institutions, what all does it entail?
Well, the specific judgment that talks about all government-aided educational institutions along with private unaided educational institutions. So ultimately the decision, of course, is going to be up to the institution to decide as to who is eligible for this, and depending on, because along with application for the quota, you'll have to provide all of the documents. Now you have to ensure that all of your cumulative income, not just from your salary, but even your family income from agricultural sources or business sources or any other sources does not exceed the 8 lakh limit. Now another interesting aspect in this is that this very issue as to whether or not 8 lakhs is a fixed limit that should be applied for economic weaker sections is also in challenge under the Supreme Court.
Right.
So the Supreme Court might change the criteria for who is eligible as an economically weaker section altogether, depending on what happens in that case. But till the time that is not decided, this 8 lakh limit is what stays. So under this, people can apply. And another very interesting aspect that the viewers should know is that even though the judges who have ruled in favor of the EWS quota have specifically in their judgments spoken about how it is the time to end the reservation, and the policy for reservations cannot be allowed to go on indefinitely. Because initially also when the reservations had come in, they had come in only for a specific time period, not into perpetuity.
But it's become into perpetuity right now.
Precisely, because it's become into perpetuity, now there's a new form of reservation that's coming in. So the Supreme Court judges have very categorically said,
is this EWS 10% quota time bound?
Not so far as the Supreme Court judgment is concerned, but at the same time they have laid down in very clear words that reservation needs to be brought to an end. As to when it can be done is something that the government has to
I'm going to ask you one very quick question before I let you go, Nalini. What is the biggest criticism of it legally?
Well, the biggest criticism regarding reservation is, of course, the fact that even though it is meant to be for the people who need a little bit of support from the government, but it does not give an equal opportunity to everybody. But at the same time, the Supreme Court has said that it's a form of an affirmative action by the state, which means that people who might not have the same opportunity communities need to be provided these opportunities. But at the same time, to what extent,
Right.
until what time, is something that the government seriously needs to ponder on, especially after the Supreme Court verdict has come.
Appreciate you joining us, Nalini, and I completely understand there'll be many of our viewers who right now, would be thinking that the quota, the general quota now has shrunk down to 40.5%. What if you don't fall in either the EWS or any of the caste calculations? Then what? You fight it out for that 40.5% category only.